Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahangsa Parivrajacharya Tadasashisamad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON's Svandracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita Ki. Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Gopremanande. All glories to the Assembled devotees. All glories to the Assembled devotees. All glories to the Assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshtarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikapatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha. Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrita ki jai. Srila Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Devotees, so yesterday we concluded the 4th chapter of the 2nd part of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we move on to the 5th chapter of the 2nd part. Incidentally, this is day 66 of our seminar on Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Yes, so we move on to the 5th chapter of the 2nd part, and there's only this chapter and 2 others left in the whole book. This chapter is entitled Prema, Love of God. And of course, it's set in Dwaraka. I'm sure you remember from last night how Gopakumar was instructed by Lord Ram to go to Dwaraka, and off he went with, who remembers, devotees, Haribol, who remembers who he went with? Jambavan. He went with Jambavan. Right, so here we are. Part 2, Chapter 5, Prema, Love of God, Text 1. Sri Gopakumar said, I then went to Dwaraka. There I saw various groups of Yadavas along with their children. They were accompanied by some Brahmins of Mathura and were enjoying themselves. Yes. So in this chapter, 5th chapter of the 2nd part, Gopakumar, of course, he meets Lord Krishna, not just Lord Ramachandra or Lord Narayan, but he actually meets Lord Krishna, the Lord of Dwaraka. So there's a little difference between Krishna and Dwaraka. There's a difference between Krishna in Dwaraka and Krishna in Vrindavan. So, but while he's here, well, he meets Uddhava, and again he meets Narada Muni, and he hears more about Vrindavan, Gokula, Vrindavan, and then Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. Yes. Okay, so let's get into it. I had wandered everywhere, but never before had I seen such a perfection of charm as that which shone in them. The Yadavas, just amazing. Such incredible people, far beyond the charm, the beauty, the sweetness of the people in Ayodhya and the people in Vaikunta. He'd never seen such handsome people, fine people, amazing people. Seeing them gave me such delight that I forgot everything I had in mind. And those Yadavas, the best of all-knowing sages, drew me into their company and embraced me. So Gopakumar, he says, I forgot everything I had in mind. What do you think he had in mind? He had in mind to offer obeisances to them, to offer them respects. But he was so enchanted by the whole scene and their beauty and their incredible attractiveness that he forgot to bow down. And it's interesting, they're described, the Yadavas are described as the best of all knowing sages. You know, you get these sages portrayed in the Vedic literatures, and they're usually, you know, they're some sort of extreme renunciates with long matted locks and, you know, living in great austerity somewhere. But the Yadavas, family people, just engaged in happy family activities in relation to Krishna. They're the best of those sages, better than those sages, actually. So therefore, because they're sages, they have like mystical perceptions. They understood who Gopakumar was. So they grabbed him and embraced him. They greeted him enthusiastically. Verse 4. When they recognized me as the son of a cowherd from Govardhan Hill, their hearts melted in a flood of affection, and they took me by the hand and brought me into the inner precincts of the city. From a distance, I saw the personality of Godhead, brilliantly manifest. At leisure in a vast assembly hall, he sat on the excellent cushion of an excellent throne made of gold and jewels. That's the Sudharma Assembly Hall of Dwarka. He was served by all the many quintessential charms of the Lord of Vaikuntha, and by many different splendors greater and greater that even that Lord does not possess. So not only did he have amazing charms, but he was being served by the quintessential charms of Vaikuntanath, Lord Narayan. Quintessential means the essence of the essence. That's quintessential. Yeah. Just like it's said, the Vedic scriptures are the essence of all scriptural knowledge. And Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas. So it's the essence of the essence. And the middle 6 chapters are the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So they're the essence of the essence of the essence. And in the middle 6 chapters, the verses in chapter 10, the 4 Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, from chapter 10 verse 8 through chapter 10 verse 11, they're the essence of the middle section of Bhagavad Gita. So that means, what does it mean? Those verses are the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence. Haribol. You can't get more essential than that. Yeah, so he's served by the quintessential charms of the Lord of Vaikuntha and various other things that even that Lord doesn't possess. So many of the attractive features of Lord Narayana are there in Lord Krishna, of course. Beautiful mouth, eyes, and so on. Fine ornaments, opulent paraphernalia. And he does things like he chews pan. He sits on a throne. We do not chew pan, by the way. So, pan. I'm so sorry. I have offended it. Well, it's Pan. It's spelt Pan. So Krishna has these charms. Lord Narayan has these charms. Krishna has these charms, but more attractively than Lord Narayan has them. And then he has his own attractive features, which Lord Narayan doesn't have. And we talked about that the other night, do you remember? 4 special attractive features. Unparalleled beauty, way beyond that of Lord Narayan. A beautiful flute playing. Narayan can also play the flute, don't worry. He can play the flute, but not like how Krishna does. Then he's surrounded by devotees who have a higher level of love of God than the devotees of any other form of the Lord. Plus, he has pastimes. Lord Narayan has pastimes. Lord Ram has pastimes, but not like the pastimes of Krishna, and particularly the rasa dance. 7, revealing his 2 beautiful arms for his devotees. Lord Krishna, the ocean of supremely wonderful pastimes, was worshipped by youthful maturity, softened by a touch of adolescent grace. How's that? Youthful maturity. But when a youth reaches maturity, they start manifesting a bit of sort of strength, adult strength, which isn't as, sweet. It's not as sweet as the sweetness of youth, sweet 16. So youthful maturity, but softened by a touch of adolescent grace. His sublime gestures stole the hearts of his servants. Yeah. So the mature beauty of youth is made sweeter by traces of childlike innocence. Never leaving him unattended, this special mixture of charm serves him with pure devotion, like a faithful worshipper of his deity form. It's a little hard to imagine. It's very poetic, but this the charming appearance serves him. Normally we don't hear about a person's appearance, the way they look, serving the person. But that's how it appears with the Lord. Above him shone a broad white umbrella. You remember about the white umbrellas? Only for the kings. At 2 sides waved a pair of excellent yak-tail fans, chamaras. And in front of him, upon a golden footstool, sat his divine slippers. When I first saw Prabhupada, first time, at university, there were 2 girls, one on either side, like here, basically. And they were not fanning him, but they were throwing rose petals in front of his feet as he walked. And what a scene. What a scene. So those chamaras were also large and white. All around him were various symbols of royalty befitting the ruler of kings among kings. And there were servants qualified to attend him, and transcendental opulences standing in rows before him. Yes. Sri Vasudev, Balaram, Akrura, and others sat to his right, each on his own seat. Gada and Satyaki to his left, and just before him, King Ugrasena. So Vasudeva, Balarama, Krura, and some others on the right. Each has his own seat. Gada, and Gada means the club personified, and Satyaki, the head of the army, on his left, and in front of him the king, Ugrasena. Ugrasena is sitting directly in front of Krishna because he's the king. Krishna is a prince there. He's not the king. Also nearby was the Lord's minister Vikadru with Kritavarma and several other prominent Vrishnis. Sri Narada was entertaining the Lord, making him smile with clever words, fine singing, and the music of his veena. So it's a bit of a surprise for Gopakumar. Narada, you're everywhere. It's actually what he says. You'll see a little later. Sri Garuda stood before the Lord, glorifying him with prayers, and Uddhava massaged the Lord's lotus feet and pleased him with affectionate, intimate remarks. 13. Seeing from a distance the goal I had long desired to see, I fell unconscious, overburdened by love. Then the Lord, brimming with the exalted rasa of affection, told Uddhava to bring me close. Uddhava quickly came forward, delighted to see me in the dress of a cowherd boy. He carefully lifted me from the ground, brought me back to full awareness, and led me to the Lord's side with both hands. So Uddhava, he visited Gokula to give the messages of Krishna to the devotees there. So he's from amongst the inhabitants of Dwaraka. He is familiar with Gokula and the people of Gokula and their ways and how they dress. So he recognizes Gopakumar. This is a cowherd boy from Gokula. Then the Lord, wanting to lift me up and draw me to his side, placed his feet close to me, and, Uddhava, with his own hand, firmly touched my head to those lotus feet. So Gopakumar, he's been around all over, as we know, but he never got mercy like this, that one of the devotees takes his head and firmly touches his head to the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord of my life then stroked me with his lotus hand, as if to cleanse each of my limbs. He took the flute from my hand, looked at it, and, apparently distressed, remained silent, shedding tears. So even though Krishna's in this assembly, he's got all these people there. His father, Vasudeva, Balaram's there. The head of the army, the king Ugrasena's there. But Krishna, when he sees the cowherd boy, one of those bridge buses, and he sees the flute, then he was unable to check his emotions, even though he's in this very formal setting. He tried his best to control himself, but it was obvious that he was deeply affected. The next moment, he asked, "Is all well with you? Is your health good? I hope the place you came from is free from any influence of misfortune." While speaking this way, he again began to feel disturbed, and Uddhava had to calm him. So when Uddhava, Uddhava, he's highly, highly, highly knowledgeable. So when he saw the Lord is beginning to lose control, he's so deeply affected by the presence of a cowherd boy from Govardhan Hill with a flute. So when Uddhava saw the effect all of this was happening on Lord Krishna, he tried to calm the Lord. Yes. With a gesture, Uddhava indicated to the Lord. Okay, it's a grammatical error. With a gesture, Uddhava indicated to the Lord and those present before them in the assembly. Oh well, anyway. Okay. With a gesture, Uddhava indicated to the Lord those present before them in the assembly, Vasudeva and the other Yadavas, and many kings and demigods and sages. There was quite an assembly there. The Lord opened his lotus eyes and glanced at the people in front of him. With difficulty, he somewhat calmed himself, and then got up to enter his inner quarters. Because I had now attained the Lord of my life, for whom I had yearned for so long, I was immersed in an ocean of joy. I had no idea what to say or what to do. 21. As the chiefs of the Yadus began leaving, the Lord honored them with items such as pan and sandalwood paste. Holding my joined palms in his right hand, he took me with him as he entered the inner palace with Balaram and Uddhava. He took hold of Gopakumar's hand very firmly. The Lord's 16,108 queens happily followed their husband along with their maid servants, and in front the queens placed their mothers-in-law, Sri Devaki and Rohini. Among the queens were the goddesses Rukmini, Satyabhama, and Jambavati, and Kalindi and Mitravinda, and Satya, Bhadra, and Lakshmana. The purport here. The word Devi, supreme ruling goddess, here refers specifically to Satyabhama, who is especially dear to Krishna, but it also refers to all these queens. Because Satyabhama, we hear more often at least that Rukmini is the chief queen in Dwaraka. But actually Satyabhama is the chief queen. Rukmini in a sort of formal sense, But actually Satyabhama is the chief queen because Satyabhama is Srimati Radharani and Rukmini is Chandravali. It's not so much described here, but yeah. Anyway, it's not so much described how Satyabhama's Radharani, how Rukmini is Chandravali. But Srila Rupa Goswami in Lalita Madhava, he says that after Krishna left Vrindavan, the gopis, and particularly the chief gopis, they, in different ways, were transferred to different places from which they became the queens of Krishna in Dwaraka. Not just that the queens are expanded from those gopis, but actually they are those gopis in person. But they've just been transferred physically, like Rukmini transferred to Kundina, the headquarters of Bhishmaka, the father of Rukmini. So then Chandravali was transferred there, and she was just renamed Rukmini, and everyone forgot that she had been in Vrindavan, and everyone thought she's just Rukmini. And then Krishna kidnapped her, and she became the queen, sort of officially the chief queen. It's quite a story. 24. The Lord's other queens followed, headed by Rohini, all of them fit in every way to be his consorts, and all honored by groups of suitably qualified maidservants. So this is a different Rohini, because this Rohini is one of Krishna's queens. Yeah. So this is not Lord Balaram's mother Rohini. Yeah. Obviously, you get more than one person with the same name. Just like I was in Mauritius a few years ago now, several years maybe, and the devotees, very nice devotees, they greeted me when I arrived, and we went to someone's house, and there was a little program there, and at the end the devotees were sort of doing whatever, and there was one young boy, sort of like maybe 20 or late teens, and he just remained there near me, and I asked him, "What's your name?" And he said, "Krishna." And I said, "You know what? I've been looking for you for years." But he wasn't that Krishna. He was another one, a different one. So this is not that Rohini, the mother of Balaram. This is a different Rohini, who's one of the 16,108 queens. Yeah. 25, with his two mothers and all these queens surrounding him shyly, the Lord entered his own palace, followed also by several groups of young sons, who added to the splendor of that procession. Within his palace, he concealed the emotions he was feeling, and with apparent pleasure, he sat down on the best of thrones, So they've gone in from the Sudama Assembly Hall into like the living quarters. And now there's another throne there for Krishna, the best of thrones. But I saw the Lord appearing before me as if adorned by the company of Sri Yashoda and all the beautiful young gopis and many young cowherd boys. Seeing the object of my own meditation, holding his flute in his hand, I again fainted, overwhelmed by delight. So, of course, in his meditation, Gopakumar has been worshipping Gopal, Madan Gopal, who's Krishna from Vrindavan. And Krishna earlier, I don't know if you caught it, just a little earlier now, Krishna took Gopakumar's flute from his hand. You remember that? And he held on to it. He didn't give it back. So now Gopakumar sees Dwaraka Krishna, Dwarakadish Krishna, but holding the flute, his flute. And suddenly it's all just Vrindavan. So those peculiar special circumstances set off a special ecstasy in Gopakumar. And in that way, he saw Devaki as Yashoda, Krishna's queens as gopis, because they are, the majority at least, they are gopis. But just in the context of the pastimes, they're externally in the positions of queens, but actually they're all gopis from Vrindavan. And so Gopakumar is seeing everything like that. Then Nanda Nandan himself, his mind moved by abundant compassion, quickly got up, and by the powerful touch of his lotus hand, he brought me back to consciousness and carefully cleaned the limbs of my body. Sure, Krishna. So the Lord was feeling a little anxious for Gopakumar. This is the second time he's fainted in just the last very short period of time. So the Lord's prime concern always is that his devotees will be happy. Therefore he felt anxious for Gopakumar, who's fainting and fainting. And he could have, sitting on the throne there, Gopakumar's somewhere out, not far away, but just somewhere in front. The Lord could have brought Gopakumar back to consciousness just by his desire. But the thing is, he wanted to take personal care of him. Therefore he came. He quickly got up and with the touch of his hand brought Gopakumar back to consciousness. The time had come for lunch, but the Lord didn't feel like eating. Okay. The Lord didn't feel like eating. Only at the insistence of his mothers did he perform his noontime duties. So the thing is, Gopakumar's presence and the flute have reminded the Lord so much of Vraja, of Vrindavan Dham, that he's feeling great pain of separation from Vrindavan Dham, and that spoiled his appetite. But his mothers wouldn't let him go without eating. You've heard of such mothers before. That darling son of Devaki fed me something with his own hand, and only then took something himself for my satisfaction. Yeah. The Lord sat his elder brother down within a circle of boys and fed them, just as he had before in his childhood pastimes. Uddhava knew the Lord's ecstasies very well, so he ate some of Krishna's Mahaprasad remnants, and then took me somewhat by force to his own house. So, Uddhava, by the Lord's arrangement, Uddhava took Gopakumar by the Lord's arrangement, because the Lord knows Gopakumar is a Brijbasi. He's from Govardhan Hill. He's a cowherd boy. But here in Dwarka, there's so much opulence, incredible opulence, which is very different from the nature, or at least the external nature of Vrindavan. But Uddhava was in Vrindavan. He knows Vrindavan. He knows the mood. So the Lord arranged that Gopakumar would go with Uddhava, because Uddhava would be able to relate with Gopakumar, and Gopakumar would be able to relate with Uddhava. There'd be a sort of Vrindavan atmosphere between them. And since Gopakumar is still like dizzy, like, wow, what's going on? Uddhava had to drag him away. Only then did I completely return to normal consciousness. Reflecting on what I had seen happen, I danced for a long time and then began to think. I said to myself, indeed, today I have achieved the ultimate perfection of all my desires. For with my very eyes I have seen, with his all-attractive charms, the hero of Vraja, upon whom I have always meditated in my heart. The next day I went with Uddhava and saw my Lord, but I was so beside myself with delight that I was unable to do more than that. So it's the second day, but Gopakumar is so just disoriented by ecstasy that he wasn't able to render any service. He could just look at the Lord. 35 to 36. While residing there in Dwarka, I constantly, abundantly received Lord Krishna's wonderful mercy. I tasted such a flood of supreme ecstasy that no one could tell of it in words or even think of it within the mind. Not even a pure devotee of the Lord with a lifetime of Brahma. Well, what can you say? It's beyond the comprehension even of great devotees. The happiness found in liberation is said to be supreme. Multiplied many millions of times, it may be said to equal the joy in Vaikuntha. And if any joy still greater can be conceived, it is that which is found in Ayodhya. But the joy born in Dwarka, How can anyone even begin to describe it? Indeed, the joy a resident of Dwarka feels from having gained the only Lord of his life after a long time yearning to see him, no faculty of mind or speech can grasp that joy. Only those whose minds are fit can know it. So if you keep serving Radha Radhanath, you'll be able to know it. After I had lived for some time there in Dwarka, some of the best of the divine Yadavas said something to me. Their hearts melted with eagerness to see everyone in the world happy within and without. Watch out. Watch out. The divine Yadavas said, "Dear friend, you've come to this place, which is more full in supreme splendor than even Vaikuntha, and you are now our companion. We think it hardly fitting that you continue to dress like a miserable forest dweller, like a cowherd boy from Govardhan Hill. We want to dress you up like a Dwarka Vasi, real opulent and just very different." This troubles our minds, so please take on our type of dress and looks, which are naturally available to anyone who lives here. Shri Gopakumar said, "Even though these Yadavas insisted, I stayed like a poor simple devotee, because in their dress I would not have been able to taste the special mood that appealed to my mind and to Lord Achyuta's. He's got that feeling for Vrindavan, very, very deep feeling. I then became shy and feared to go to the side of the personality of Godhead when he was seated in his court and being served by his transcendental opulences." So you can see what's beginning to happen. It's the same phenomenon is beginning to happen. Dissatisfaction is beginning to encroach. Sometimes I would see the Lord with 4 hands. I couldn't always see the special pastimes he performs in Vraja Bhumi. Yeah. Because the Lord would get busy. He'd go into the assembly hall, have meetings. Yeah. And then Gopakumar couldn't see him as his Lord of Vraja. Sometimes he could see him as his Lord of Vraja, but at those times not. Sometimes the Lord would go alone to visit his dear friends, the Pandavas, who stayed nearby. And so, because of desires long held but unfulfilled, my heart would feel tormented. But when I could see his beauty and qualities once again, my heart would again become peaceful. So it's the same phenomenon. His nectarian words revealed his mercy. How can my tongue even touch the unique happiness they created? During the several days I spent this way in the house of Uddhava, if there were any unhappiness, I would conceal it by feigning happiness, acting as if he's happy. One day I saw Narada come. I bowed down to him, and in utter joy and amazement I spoke to him in the following way. So you know what's going to happen? Tune in on Monday. I tell you, it's amazing. It's amazing. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.